What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Face Off Sports Network. I'm Anthony Servino with my top fantasy football waiver wire additions for week 2. Let's get started with J.K. Dobbins. And J.K. Dobbins, 49% rostered. That's it. That means on your platform, you almost have a 50% chance of getting your hands on a potential fantasy football league winner. Now, J.K. Dobbins, we know, oft injured, can't stay healthy. All of that was baked into his fantasy football ADP this offseason, but still, you would not draft him. In week 1, J.K. Dobbins went absolutely, positively ballistic. Now, he outsnapped Gus Edwards, who was going higher in drafts than J.K. Dobbins, 32-22. When it comes to production, it was not even close. 22.9 PPR points, 10 rushes, 135 yards, a touchdown, caught all 3 targets for only 4 yards. But he averaged 13.5 yards per rush. This is the dynamic, explosive, and elusive J.K. Dobbins we all thought we were getting year in and year out before the injuries. In this Greg Roman, Jim Harbaugh system, we know they want to run the football and they will commit to running the football, which means as long as he's healthy, J.K. Dobbins could be a fantasy football league winner that you can get on your waiver wire right now. Let's go to Jaleel McLaughlin. Like Dobbins, I told everybody last week going into week 1, pick these guys up now and get ahead of the market. Well, if you didn't, you still have time. McLaughlin, you can still get him in over 40% of leagues. Jaleel McLaughlin, obviously, in a timeshare with Javonte Williams. But let's face it, Javonte Williams did not play well. Now, neither did Jaleel McLaughlin, but Jaleel McLaughlin finished the day with 5 more touches than Javonte Williams. And neither one played well. This Broncos offense did not play well, but we should still roster Jaleel McLaughlin primarily in PPR scoring formats. McLaughlin had 5 targets, caught all of them for only 1 yard. He also rushed the ball 10 times for 27 yards. All that being said, 7.8 PPR points for a guy who was extremely inefficient. Now, it's going to be tough the next couple weeks. You get Pittsburgh. You know that's a tough defense, but they did get gashed by Bijan Robinson. Then they get Tampa. Good defense, but both Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler had solid fantasy outings in week 1. Obviously, the Jets, that's going to be a really tough matchup, but then things will open up in week 5, week 6, week 7, week 8. So now is the time. Don't linger. Don't let them get more expensive. Don't let your league mates get their hands on them. Go roster Jaleel McLaughlin while you still can. Let's go to Justice Hill. Now, Justice Hill is the number 2 back, the clear number 2 back in Baltimore, rostered in 3.4% of leagues. But week 1, season opener against Kansas City, Justice Hill only had 1 carry. However, while he only had 1 carry, and while Derrick Henry dominated the running back workload as a ball carrier, Justice Hill, as a receiver out of the backfield, had 8 targets, catching 6 of them for 52 yards. Justice Hill is probably going to be the pass-catching running back in this backfield. And not saying that Derrick Henry isn't capable. He's had some solid years as a receiver out of the backfield. That is not his forte. And at his age, maybe the Baltimore Ravens want to spell him with the guy like Justice Hill, who they trust on 3rd downs and as a receiver. When it comes to playing time, Justice Hill had 2 more snaps than Derrick Henry. Justice Hill had 38, Derrick Henry 36. So we know from week 1 that this is going to be a timeshare despite the fact that Derrick Henry is going to get the bulk of the workload, it also tells us that Baltimore, they need to do a better job disguising their hand, because when Derrick Henry's on the field, they run the football. They need to get a little bit more creative, but still, Justice Hill, 3.4% of leagues, that's it. What if, knock on wood, Derrick Henry goes down to injury? You have Baltimore starting running back at least until Keaton Mitchell comes back in a few weeks. Let's go to our first wide receiver we're going to talk about today, Wan'Dale Robinson. He's only rostered in 6.9% of leagues. I took Wan'Dale everywhere in best ball. I took a few deep shots on him in FFPC. And from the gate in week one, Wan'Dale is doing exactly what I thought he would do. I also do a show on RotoWire with Jim Coventry, and Wan'Dale Robinson was one of Jim's guys all off season long. Wan'Dale caught 6 of 12 targets for 44 yards. He even ran the ball one time for 14 yards. Now, weren't very deep balls. He was frequently targeted around the line of scrimmage, but he still finished with 5 more targets. 5 more targets than Malik Neighbors. That is telling. Now, why could this happen? A big reason why I was in on Wan'Dale Robinson in the offseason. Vacated Saquon Barkley targets, no more Waller, and question marks at the tight end. Those routes that are being thrown to by Daniel Jones, they're not going to go deep to Neighbors. They're not going to go to Slayton. They're going to go to the slot receiver, and the slot receiver is Wan'Dale Robinson. Now, Wan'Dale was third in terms of snap share. Malik Neighbors 68, Darius Slayton 49, Wan'Dale 46. But again, led the team in targets by a wide margin. This is going to be a bad football team. Daniel Jones a bad quarterback. And even if they pull the plug on Daniel Jones, they're going to go to Drew Lock, another bad quarterback, which means Wan'Dale, as long as he's healthy, is going to be utilized out of the slot and heavily targeted. He brings a high PPR floor week in and week out. We're going to go to Demarcus Robinson next, 6.4% rostered. And this is a contingent pickup. And what does that mean? Demarcus Robinson's fantasy value is contingent on Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua, we know, had the lower body injury, the knee, going into the season, going into week one. They said he's fine. Early in the game, leaves, tries to come back, leaves again. Usually when that happens, there's a good chance that the player misses at least one game. We don't know this for sure. They're doing further testing on Monday, which is today. So I would try to get ahead and pick up Demarcus Robinson. Demarcus Robinson last year was a very good wide receiver down the stretch. And down the stretch is when Cooper Kupp was in and out of the lineup. His career was resurrected in this offense by Sean McVay. And I expect if Puka Nacua misses time, Demarcus Robinson is going to be heavily utilized even against the Rams in week one. He was targeted 7 times. He caught 4 for 42, 8.2 PPR points. He played 68 offensive snaps, the second most behind Cooper Kupp. Now, there's also Tyler Johnson, who played in 49 snaps, because if Puka's out, that means Demarcus Robinson, his role is expanded, which means there's a vacant wide receiver 3 role, which is probably going to be Tyler Johnson's. Now, Tyler is extremely contingent on Puka getting hurt and DeMarcus moving up. But in last night's game, 5 of 7 targets for 79 yards and a touchdown. He was actually more productive fantasy-wise than Demarcus Robinson. So either one of these guys can be picked up and rostered. Get ahead of the market in case Puka Nacua misses extended time. Let's go to our first tight end. And our first tight end, Isaiah Likely, 28% rostered. He is known, at least for now, as the most obvious fantasy football pickup for the week 2 waiver wire. We know why. He absolutely positively went ballistic in the season opener. Targeted 12 times, catching 9 for 111 and a touchdown, almost catches a second touchdown as a walk-off winner to end the game. Going into this season, Isaiah Likely was touted by the Ravens. There were reports and there were rumors that, hey, the Ravens don't have a wide receiver too. And Isaiah Likely has a rapport with Lamar. He's versatile. He can be our joker. He can be our pseudo wide receiver too. Some people bought in, some people didn't. And in week 1, he sure as hell proved everybody who doubted wrong. Now, can Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely coexist? They absolutely can. Just because Andrews had a bad game, I anticipate that the Chiefs defense said, hey, we're going to take out Mark Andrews, let the Ravens' ancillary weapons beat us. And that's what they did. Mark Andrews was ineffective, but Mark Andrews, 53 snaps, Isaiah Likely, 52 snaps. They were both on the field at the same time. It just so happens that Likely was more productive and more targeted. I'm not saying Likely is going to get 12 targets every week, because eventually, probably as soon as this week against Las Vegas, Mark Andrews is going to get his normal role back. But there is a world where Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, and Isaiah Likely are the 3 highest targeted Baltimore Ravens pass catchers, which means you absolutely want to buy into Isaiah Likely, at least for now. At least after a 1-week sample size, he is no longer a handcuff. He is no longer an injury contingent player. Isaiah Likely has standalone value in fantasy football. Let's go to our first quarterback as we wind down, Baker Mayfield, 34.11% rostered. I get it's the matchup. I get it was the Commanders, but Baker Mayfield, 32.6 fantasy points. 80% completion percentage, 24-30, 289 yards, 4 touchdowns, 9.6 yards per attempt. He even ran 3 times for 21 yards. Baker Mayfield looked like a star. Anybody who was questioning who Baker Mayfield is without Dave Canales, Baker Mayfield said, pipe down. I'm Baker Mayfield. I'm going to get the job done. And I tried telling people, I get Dave Canales is gone, but Liam Cohen, the new OC, comes from the Sean McVay tree. I absolutely loved the move at OC for Tampa Bay. In fact, I loved it for Chris Godwin, who looked outstanding with over 20 PPR points in his own right. But you got to pick up Baker Mayfield. He's not going to give you this elite production every week. The matchup gets tougher next week against Detroit, but he is a quality fantasy football starting quarterback, certainly in super flex leagues, certainly in 2 quarterback leagues, and even in 12-team leagues. If you lost Jordan Love, you want Baker Mayfield. Let's say you were in a super flex league and somebody already rosters Justin Fields and you were counting on Russell Wilson. Maybe you can trade for Baker Mayfield. Like Baker Mayfield, with his weapons and his OC and Tampa's defense, it's okay. It's not great. They're going to give up points. He is absolutely worth rostering. And depending on the matchup, you can start Baker Mayfield in fantasy football. Let's close out with Justin Fields, the aforementioned Justin Fields. And Justin Fields rostered in 14% of leagues. Going into week 1, we thought it was going to be Russell Wilson. Then Russell Wilson had the calf issue. And then Russell Wilson saying, I could play. And then the Steelers doctors saying, not so fast. Let's see what we have in Justin Fields, which is, I think, is a very smart organizational decision. Now, the Steelers come out with a win, albeit an ugly win over the Atlanta Falcons. And Justin Fields, sometimes a really good fantasy quarterback. This time he wasn't. Only 13.5 fantasy points, 17 of 23 for 156 yards. No touchdowns, no interceptions, 1 fumble, which he did not lose. He also ran the ball 14 times for 57 yards. This was a tough Atlanta Falcons defense in Atlanta. I didn't expect a lot out of Justin Fields, but what he did show us is an outstanding rapport out the gate with explosive playmaker George Pickens. There could be something here with George Pickens and Justin Fields, and the schedule gets a little bit softer. You get Denver next week. You get the Chargers, you get Indy. So if Justin Fields holds on to the starting job, and it's a big if, maybe they pull the plug as soon as Russ is good to go. Maybe they don't. But this is somebody you certainly want to get ahead of the market on, because we know if Justin Fields gets going in the right matchup, he's a fantasy football week winner. I'm Anthony Servino. This is the Face Off Sports Network. If you like this video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and the alert icon so you can be notified anytime we are live to answer your questions or drop content just like this. If you have waiver wire questions, drop them in the comment section of this video, and one of the podcast hosts will get back to you as soon as we can. Good luck with your waiver wire pickups in week 2.